Palta vineyard here in Cochao in Chile. I am Andrea Leon, one of the winemakers here, and I'll be your host during this tour of Lapostolle. So to begin with this beautiful view, now it's in Chile, it's the evening. I'll talk a little bit about who we are and how it all began. It all started 20 years ago, actually, in 1994, when Alexandra Marnier Lapostolle, from the same family, created the famous orange liqueur Grand Marnier, wanted to make her own New World wine. She toured the world and she found here, right in this place, the best condition to produce the wines she was dreaming of. And she brought over a French team of winemakers. Now there's a few Chileans around like me. And it all started with a vision to make Cuvée Alexandre. They found some very old vines. We will go there afterwards. And they began planting most of the estate. The vines are great conditions for reds, mainly. Merlot, we can see it, is the more orange blocks. Up the hill, then we can see the beautiful red color of the Carmenère. And on the bottom, Cabernet Sauvignon. So Bordeaux grape varieties planted on high density. So there's about 7,000 plants per hectare, which is very high. That allow us to leave very little fruit per plant and concentrate the flavors. And then you can see the hills that surround the estate. We'll talk later more about those important hills. The soil is an old glacier who retreat. It left this material. It's mainly granite, a deep soil, but very poor, great for growing grapes. You can see the Andes there on the far side. It's a bit hazy today. So that's the east. And behind us is the Pacific, the west. So the vineyard has almost a north-south exposure, which is quite rare in Chile. That allows us again to save a lot of afternoon sun and keep the wines during a long ripening season with high levels of acidity. Okay, very important. We have also another two estates. One in Casablanca, which is coastal, next to the beach, a little bit northern west from here, where we grow Chardonnay for our Cuvée Alex Chard and Casa Chardonnay, and a little bit of Pinot Noir that we sell only in Chile. And then right in the north, but towards the Andes, so that way we have another estate, Las Curas Vineyard, where we grow Sauvignon Blanc for Casa and Cuvée, and Syrah and Cabernet, mainly for blending and Casa range. So we'll go right inside the vineyard now. Let's go. So here we are in the old barn block. This is the base for Cloa Palta. We are standing on a vineyard planted in 1910 with pre-phylloxeric material brought from France, which is not grafted because in Chile we still don't have phylloxera. Dry farm as well, standing on a colluvial granitic soil, as we will see in the vineyard and also in the winery later on. So this vineyard was the factor that convinced the Marnier Lapostolle that in Chile, and particularly in this corner of A Palta, they could make wines that could stand out there with all the top wines in the world. Something very nice and unique you have the opportunity to see now is why along the whole of A Palta, this is the corner to be. You can see the horseshoe shape of the hills. We are, that's the west where the sun goes down toward the Pacific. So those hills protect us from both the really cold winds from the Pacific, allowing a long ripening season for reds, and also they save us from the afternoon sun. At the end of the whole of the growing season, there's quite a consistent hours of afternoon fierce sun that these grapevines are protected with those hills. So all those factors together convinced, rightfully so, as we can see now after a few years of being in Chile, that this was a unique terroir that will allow us to make unique wines. So let's go now and visit our farm. This is a very boring looking or nicely looking, if you have the eyes of a wine grower, pile of compost from this vintage. We want to end up having all this big space full of them with about 800 tons of all the stems and the skins that are kind of organic leftovers from the winemaking process. So this will be put back in the vineyard and will enhance the fertility, and we ensure that our grapes have great flavors. This is very important on any biodynamic or organic viticulture. You cannot be successful without having a great compost. It is here almost 6:30 in the evening, so we can see the sun going down behind the hills. So you can see the difference of the sun. We are on the western side of the estate, and you can see where we were before in the old vines. It's already all under shadow. So we have here our Carmener. Carmener, it's a late ripener grape variety. It needs more sun and more heat to fully ripen. So that's why we have put Carmener on this part of the vineyard, because for them we need more sun. And we have Cabernet and Merlot on the other side. So this is part of the vineyard we call the pine trees. You can see why. The first trials really in 2001. So it's quite a long time. Because our owner, Alexandra Marnier, and her family have a very beautiful botanical garden, and they've been in touch with this way of making agriculture back there. And she saw that in Chile it was something very possible to achieve because we have very little pest. We are protected by natural barriers. The Andes on the east, the big Pacific Ocean on the west, the dry desert, and then the glaciers. So we have very little pests. So to establish a system of organic and biodynamic is comparatively easier. Not that it's easy on any means, but we achieved that. From 2006 onwards, we became fully organic, and then from 2008 we start being biodynamic. That means the last time we add any chemical in the vineyard was in 2006. So it's pretty amazing. We follow the rhythms of the earth to do certain work, just like old farm, a few generations before used to work. And that why we do that, because we firmly believe that that will bring the final product, the wine, closer to its origin. In a more clear way, and also because, well, it's good for the environment and for the future generations. We want to drink great wines for many years to come. This is the reception of Cloa Balta Winery. Today we are receiving here Carmener from old vines. We will make at least half of the wine. Here will be Carmener. We have a special winemaking philosophy for Cloa Balta, where the grapes are, besides being hand harvested, they're handy stem. So we don't have any machines, just 60 ladies that are very noisy. That's why I'm talking outside before going in. Berry by berry, destem the grapes from the stem. We have a vibrant table that will select whatever little debris or resin the ladies couldn't select or missed, and a cooling panel that will help us to chill the grapes to have a long cold soak. Let's come in and see what's going on here. It will be noisy, so we won't talk much, but you can see them here working. It's been a long day today. This is the second time we're processing. You can see her very gently. Of the cooling panel, the grapes are nicely chilled. We can really select the temperature. Here they're chilled around 8 to 10 degrees. And then we put them on the Arturito, those little tanks with wheels, for just a way to collect the berries. So we don't have any machine or any pump. The berries are transported through these little wheel tanks to the fermentation room. So that's pretty amazing, eh? Seeing the grapes being dropped on the tanks. So well, this is our fermentation room here. It's like quite grand. We have 21 tanks of French oak. They are 70,500 liters each. They're all almost full now. We're right in the middle of the harvest. So there's full of barrels and very busy. So the grapes are dropped on each tank without any crushing, as you saw, and they will spend on the tank from 4 to 6 weeks. We only will do very gentle extraction by manual pillage. We have quite a few interns, so if you're any time interested in coming to work with us, there's plenty of stuff to do during the harvest. We don't use any yeast on any of our red wines, also with Casa and Cuvée. And then, little by little, these kind of solid grapes becomes a liquid. The yeast go inside the berries, and with the CO2 production, the berries explode, and the whole fermentation process begins. Temperatures between 24, maximum 28 during the whole process, and we basically leave the wine alone. We have a lot to do, even if it looks like the wine makes itself. Basically checking the tannins extraction and the temperature. Temperature is key for managing wild yeast. Okay? We will harvest normally 4 tanks of Merlot, that you can see them, the first 4 there. They're 2014 Merlot for Cloa Palta. And then we will carry on with the Cabernet Sauvignon from the old vines we visited as well. And we're now in the middle of the Carmener harvest. Some years, one Petit Verdot that might go in or not in Cloa Palta. In this winery, only Cloa Palta. We have another winery just down the hill where we make our Casa, Canto, and Cuvée range. Not too different in terms of winemaking, but stainless steel and pump overs, delestage. Here, only pillage. This winery was designed by a Chilean architect that worked closely with the Marnier Lapostolle, so he could put together the French and Chilean philosophy. the French winemaking vision with the Chilean terroir. That is the main philosophy of our wines and our winemaking. It's all designed like an ellipse, which is a very natural shape. He was inspired by a big, the Piazza di Campidoglio. It was designed by Miguel Angel, and also by a bird nest. You probably have heard the story behind Canto de Apalta. Well, it is true. There was a bush, a white bush, who had this bird nest, who had the same organic shape. That's what represents also those beans who are in front of the winery. Okay. The winery has 7 stores. It's built on a vertical, and the grapes arrive in the top and the bottles leave from the bottom. So it's all in vertical. Okay, so let's go now to the next step. So we will be going through a lot of stairs, me at least, during the visit. You can see here all the sides really of the winery. You barely see the first 2 levels, who are upper the hill, the reception there, and the fermentation. And then all the rest is the underground. You can see, well, the spiral staircases is kind of the heart of the architecture of the winery. So this is the fermentation room down. Well, after the fermentation is finished, our technical director, Jacques Begary, takes every day the tanks, and when he feels the extraction is completed, we rack straight to the barrels in the next level. We have a system of pipings in the floor that allow us to do that. So we use no pump. And then the skins who are left inside the tank, we have a little vertical press, which is excellent for years where the extraction is more difficult. The press wine, which is the wine you extract from the skins, has normally a lot of tannins. So sometimes when you need a little bit of an extra kick, it's good to use a small percentage. Otherwise, it's of such a good quality that we use it in cuvee. Anyway, here we make about 8,000 cases of wine, and so there's 20% roughly that will end up being Cuvée Alexander. Lapostolle as a whole, we make 200,000 cases of wine, and we own about 370 hectares of our own vineyards. And we have about 200 hectares of constructors or long-term producers that we use basically for Casa and a little bit also in Canto de Apalta. So we are right under the fermentation room, and this is what we call the first year barrel room. We have here the new stuff. So these are the first barrels of the 2014 vintage that will live here for a year. The room has the shape of a cross. It's inspired on the Southern Cross, which is also on a tapa pisco. We follow up the malolactics that will occur in the barrels naturally. We leave them happening. Some years they happen right after the alcoholic fermentation. Some other years they happen much later, in September, when the weather starts warming up. We are here going into the fall, so it's getting colder and colder every year. Here in the barrels is where the malolactic occurs. We use only natural bacteria. Our malolactic is natural. It happens sometimes right after the alcoholic fermentation. Some other vintages in September, when the weather starts warming up. We're going now into our fall, so the weather is getting colder and colder every day. And these barrels are all wrapped up like that because we are also using them as a fermentation vessel. This is another tool we use to have more elegance and complexity in the wines. Some lots we will make 20, 30 barrels. Overall, we might do 200 in a harvest, where we take out the lid of the barrel, we put the fruit inside, we put the lid back in, and then we will roll it. After malolactic, we will sulfur only a little bit because the wine is made from organic grapes. So we're only allowed to add a tiny bit of sulfur, and we will chill the room. When the new harvest arrives here, we will have to move these barrels. Either we will take the whole barrel and bring it to the second year barrel room where the wine will have another year in barrel. Or again, we have some inlets where it's all full of barrels now, so it's hard to see them in the floor, so we can rack the barrel if we need it. Normally, we will take the whole barrel. The wine will spend 24 months average. Some vintages it's 20, some others it might be even 26, but on the same barrel. Okay? So let's go to the second year barrel room. But first, we have a stopover in between. Lapostolle in the middle of the harvest. I hope you enjoy everything we've seen and talked about, and I hope you are able to come one day sooner than later. Bye!